Hello, I am moving into a new chapter in fundamental rights, that is right to religion, right to freedom of religion, Article 25 to 28. So, in this particular video, I will be specifically talking about Article 25, various aspects, and this right to religion. So, the topic of this video is Article 25 and right to religion. In fact, there are 4 articles in right to religion: 25, 26, 27, 28. But in this, I am specifically talking about Article 25. And as you know, there are 6 groups of fundamental rights: right to equality, right to freedom and liberty, right against exploitation. The 4th set of rights are right to religion, Article 25 to 28, and this 25 to 28 makes India explicitly a secular state. Why India is secular, how India is secular? These 4 articles ensure that we are secular. Okay. So, Article 25 to 28 make sure that India is secular. It is not that the secularism as an idea came subsequently or anything. Right from the beginning, these articles are there. And even though we added the word secular into our preamble only in 1976, the elements of secularism, or rather the ingredients of secularism, are already there, and it is in 25 to 28. There is the most explicit. There are other provisions also, but these are very, very clear and explicit. And India is a secular state. It does not mean that India is an irreligious or an atheistic state. It is India is not an irreligious or an atheistic state. We are not against religion, and we are not irreligious. And the Indian doctrine, the ancient doctrine in India is the state protects all religions but interferes with none. So, our philosophy right from the beginning is the state protects all religions but will not interfere in any of them. See, these are something I will say very, very important and golden rule, the golden principle across the world. In the Europe and all, in the medieval time, they tried and tested and they failed, and they understood that religion and politics should be always kept away. We should not mix it. They learned a hard way, and the hard learning that religion should not be mixed with politics. But unfortunately, things are not that smooth the way the secular ideals with which we started. And today what is happening, definitely it is not as per our prescription. It is not as per the wishes of our forefathers. We have definitely moved away from those ideals. We will see that. So, the state, the idea behind secularism or this 25 to 28 is state is concerned with relationship with man and man. State is concerned between the relationship between man and man. State is not concerned about the relationship between man and God. Not concerned. So, state will keep away from man's relationship with God. That is the idea behind the whole thing. And we want, the state is always worried about what man is doing with other men, or rather the interpersonal relationship. How can we economically grow? How can we grow in a fullest way? And our secular principles means state will not interfere in the religious matters, and religion will not be allowed to interfere in the state matters. So, a secular principle also says the state will not interfere in religious matters. And religion will not be allowed to interfere in state matters. Religion will not be allowed to interfere in state matters. Religion has its own space. You do, it's a personal thing of an individual. It should be the personal thing of an individual. And even the political leaders, religion should be their personal affair. This should not be displayed in public. I mean, ideally. I am talking about ideal things. Ideal things never happen in India. Okay. And we have our own versions. And you know, Karl Marx said religion is the opium of the masses. Ye nasha hai. No doubt regarding this. Okay. Karl Marx, very famous, he said religion is the opium of the masses. See, it is good if you are using religion and if you are following and practicing, and religion has its own role to play. I have no doubt regarding this. But it cannot, it's like, you know, opium, it's like a liquor, it's like, you know, smoking, and if you overdo it, it can do harm for everybody. If you are using it the right quantity, if you are using religion and if you are participating and practicing and involving in religion in the right level and the right quantity, it is very good for all of us. It helps us in the spiritual well-being, it helps in mental peace, and it can bring in a lot of calm and, you know, purpose in life. Everything will be much more clearer. A purposefulness to life will come. Religion can help us. So what is religion? The religion, so religion should be used in the right way. A secular state means religion will not be allowed to interfere in the political matters or in the state matters. But that is not what is happening in our country, unfortunately, of late. Especially religion is, you know, displayed in a more overt, not covert, overt display of the religious favor. And all these, you know, communalism and all, it is not a good thing to talk about. It is a real sad aspect of our society today. Now, coming to what is religion? Now, when we talk about, you know, when India is a secular state, religion will not be allowed to interfere in state matters and all. What is religion? Very simple. Religion is a system of beliefs and practices. A system of beliefs and practices which are regarded by those who profess that religion as conducive for their spiritual well-being, which are regarded beliefs and practices which are regarded as conducive to their spiritual well-being. Conducive for their spiritual well-being. So, all those who practice their religion, these beliefs and practices are conducive for their spiritual well-being. So, there is a set of beliefs. See, religion is not science. Please don't confuse. Many people talk about this. Is religion science? No. What is religion then? Religion is beyond science. What science cannot explain, religion will explain. Right? When the science expands, maybe some of the space of religion will be taken away. So, you know, that is why if you want to clarify and classify, I will say religion is beyond science. See, science cannot explain many of the beliefs and practices. Okay, why do we do certain things? Why do we believe certain things? That belief is part of the religion. So, you cannot question the faith. Faith is the central theme in any religion. You should have faith in the religion. You should believe in certain things. You cannot explain. You cannot come up with an explanation for those things, the religious faith and belief. So, religion cannot be explained with the help of science. Scientifically, you cannot prove anything. And according to anthropologists and sociologists, death rituals, the mystery of death, or the mystery of this body and soul, we are not able to resolve this even today. What happens to our soul, our spirit, after death? See, when you are alive, your body and soul is a combination, it is there. You cannot distinguish that. But the moment you are dead, when the dead body is lying, we say the spirit has gone, the soul has gone. Where is it gone? Is it hanging around? Is it going up? Is it going to heaven or hell? Or heaven and hell is not there in every religion. So what? Moksha. Where is this moksha? What do you mean by moksha? And you will be relieved from the cycles of birth and death. That's what we are saying. So otherwise you will be reincarnated, or you will have that cycles of death and birth and death will be there. So this mystery of this body and soul, this disconnect, what happens to the soul after death? All these things have ultimately, that is what in sociology and anthropology say, this could be the beginning of the religion. That is why the death rituals are the most elaborate of all the rituals. So religion is a set of beliefs and practices. And you have certain belief, and then you have to practice certain things to fulfill, so that your spiritual well-being is taken care automatically. So that is how the religion is placed. Now Article 25, now coming to Article 25, Article 25 says the freedom of conscience and the freedom to profess, practice and propagate religion. Freedom of conscience and the freedom to profess, practice and propagate religion. Profess, practice and propagate religion. So there are twofold freedom. One is the freedom of conscience. What is conscience? Conscience is the the inner, the absolute inner freedom of the citizen to mold his own relationship with God in whatever manner he or she likes. So the twofold freedom in Article 25. One is the freedom of conscience. Conscience is the absolute inner freedom. The absolute inner freedom of a citizen to mold his own relationship with God, to mold his or her own relationship with God, or whatever. If God is not every religion has God. So that spirit or a supernatural power, whatever it is. So that absolute inner freedom, that is the freedom of conscience. So the second freedom, so one is the freedom of conscience. The second freedom is the freedom to profess, practice and propagate religion. So what is profess? Profess means to declare freely and openly that I believe in this religion or I practice this religion. To profess means to declare openly. To declare openly one's faith, one's religion. You have a right. You have a right to declare that I belong to this religion. You do not hide. It is not any religion can be practiced and you have a right to practice that, and you can declare it openly also. Practice means to perform the prescribed religious functions and duties, fasting, rituals, religious, exhibiting your religious, spirit, you can exhibit, there can be procession, all those things you can practice and propagate, spread and publicize your religion. See, there is a right. Unfortunately, this is a very controversial thing. You have a right to spread and propagate your religion. So, twofold rights. One is the freedom of conscience, and at the same time you have a freedom to profess, practice and propagate religion. But this propagate, spread and publicize your religion, it does not include, the propagate does not include the right to convert. The right to convert. You cannot say, I have a right to convert somebody else. But that man can get converted himself by listening to you. That is okay. Okay. So there is a person A cannot convert B. But B can convert himself into A's religion. But B can convert himself to A's religion after listening to the propaganda, or after listening to the propaganda of A. That is okay, because when B is converting himself, it is his freedom of conscience. If I convert, I listen to you, and if I am converting to your religion, then it is my freedom of conscience. But if you say that you have a right to convert me, then it is a violation of my freedom of conscience. You have no right. You can propagate, you can tell about your religion. So this conversion is a controversial issue in our country. I will talk about that separately. Anti-conversion laws in our country, there are so many of them. Even the Supreme Court has said that many of these laws are a violation of the right to privacy also, because it is a violation of freedom of conscience also. Anyway, I will come to that. So freedom of conscience, the inner self-belief. What makes you spiritually happy? The way you practice your religion. See, Hindu religion is the most liberal religion in the world, I will say. No, you can practice the religion the way you want. It's not like Islam or Christianity. There are strict rules and regulations in Islam and Christianity. But that is not the case with the Hindu religion. Very liberal, very open. And it is left to the practitioners to decide how they want to practice the religion. What gives them satisfaction, the way they can do. There are, many Hindus, they may not go to temple on a regular basis. They may be going only on occasions. But there are people who may go to the temple every day. There are people who may be, praying every day, or other, special puja may be there every day. But it's not the case with the Islam. You have strict timing also, when to pray, when not to pray. Everything is there. Even in Christianity, Sunday mass, this, that. So much of regular. See, there is a hierarchy in Islam and in Christianity, but that is not the case with the Hinduism. Very liberal. People are left to their choice. They can decide the way they want to practice. They can, they can continue with their relationship with the God. So, Article 25 talks about freedom of conscience, the inner self-belief, the way they want to practice, and the freedom to profess, practice and propagate religion. But this Article 25 is not absolute. Please note, reasonable restrictions can be there. Article 25 is not absolute. Reasonable restrictions can be there. So, there are various restrictions. So, Article 25(2), 25(1) talks about the freedom of conscience and the freedom to profess, practice and propagate religion. Article 25(2) says that this, notwithstanding anything in this article, the state can make law regulating or restricting any of the economic, financial, political or other secular activity. So, Article 25(2) says that state can make law state can make law to regulate the economic, financial, political, economic, financial, political or any other secular activity, associated with religion. Okay, the state can regulate the economic activity, the financial activity, the political activity or any other secular activity associated. What do you mean by secular activity associated with religion? See, anything what we do even otherwise. See, for example, marriage. Marriage is a secular activity. Those who believe in religion, those who don't believe in religion, they may undergo marriage as a, as a system in the society. Married life. See, but the procedure for marriage in Hindu community may be totally different from the Muslim community or the Christian community. The rituals are totally different. The rules are totally different. But marriage as an institution is a secular activity. Or procession. Suppose religious processions are there, political processions are there, or you can, student union Protestant processions can be there. So procession is a secular activity. So there can be regulations on the secular activity. See, now we should understand two things. A religion has, two concepts we can say, a core principles and peripheral activities. Core and periphery. There are some core values for each religion. The state will not interfere in the core values. But the peripheral activities like the economic activity, the financial activity, the dressing or how the feast, say for example, in a religious feast, what all should be served. Some religion there may be only vegetarian food. In some other religion there may be non-vegetarian food. What can be eaten, what will be served is it's a secular activity. The feast is a secular activity, it's a peripheral activity. See, the state can restrict the economic, financial, political or secular activity means the state can interfere in the peripheral activity of the religion, the non-core activities. See, for example, the teachings of Prophet Muhammad is the core of Islam, or teachings of Jesus Christ is the core of Christianity. And the belief that Jesus Christ resurrected after 3 days, the resurrection of Jesus is the core principle or the core belief of Christianity. But there are the marriage rules in Christianity or the marriage rules in Hinduism, the marriage rules in say Islam are totally different. The divorce, for example, it's extremely difficult to get divorce in Christianity, but very easy to get divorce in Islam. I mean, that is why the triple talaq thing was also there, even though it is a misinterpretation of the Islamic teaching, we can say. Hinduism, the philosophy is totally different. So these activities which are non-core, which can be regulated. Article 25(2) says that the state can regulate. So, the what you call the non-core, the other personal law. Personal law associated with religion. What are the personal law? That is the civil code we say, associated with religion. See, each religion has a different law when it comes to marriage, divorce, succession, inheritance. Even for divorced people, maintenance. Then maybe adoption. So these activities, these are all secular activities associated with religion. This will come under and each religion has different laws, different norms. Each religion has different laws. These laws or these norms, these regulations, we call it as the personal law. So, the personal law associated with each, we have a Hindu code. We have a Muslim code in India and we have a Christian code. Christian, Hindu code, the Hindu Marriage Act, the Hindu Succession Act, like that. Okay. So, we have various norms and regulations when it comes to the personal life. But Supreme Court or rather the Constitution says, Article 25(2) says, these are non-core activities of religion. The state says, the Article 25(2) says that there can be, the state can make law to regulate economic, financial, political or secular activities associated with religion. Secular activities include this personal law. This, the secular activities include the issues related to marriage, divorce, maintenance, succession, inheritance, adoption, etc. So, Article 25(2) permits the state. That is why Uniform Civil Code, I will come to that. Article 44, we will be talking separately. Uniform Civil Code is not a violation of Article 25. So, if you did not understand fully what I am trying to say, leave it right now. I will be talking about Uniform Civil Code separately in Article 44, then more clarity will come. But please understand Article 44 or rather Article 25, and because of Article 25(2), there can be reasonable restrictions on all these activities, and Uniform Civil Code is a reasonable restriction and it can be there. It is not violating the religious rights. So, Article 25(2) says that there can be reasonable restrictions on economic, financial, political and other secular activity. Another point in Article 25(2)(b) says, for state can introduce a law providing for social welfare and reform or throwing open Hindu religious institutions of public character to all classes of people. So, if the state can introduce social reform, introduce a law, state can introduce a law for social reforms and social welfare. And it can also, the state can bring a law to throw open Hindu religious institutions for all classes of people, to throw open Hindu religious institutions, temples and all, for all classes of people, for all classes of people, for all classes of people. So, it is very clear. Article 25(2) says the state can make a law because of our discrimination, because of untouchability, because the way we treated our own brethren, our own citizens of the country, the Hindu citizens, the Dalits. Article 25(2) says the state can provide they can make a law for social welfare and social reforms, and it can even throw open Hindu religious institutions of public character for all classes of people and all sections of, all classes and sections of Hindus, all classes of people nahi likha, please don't mistake it, for all classes of Hindus, all classes of Hindus. That means non-Hindus can be excluded, okay, for all classes of Hindus. But the Constitution also gives an explanation that wearing a kirpan by the Sikh community members, it's a knife-like object. So, wearing a kirpan is permitted. That is not And they said it special exemption has been given. You can, I mean, the Sikh community members, the Sikh religious people can wear a kirpan, carry a kirpan, that is permitted. And also, and when it is also another explanation given in the constitution is that when we say to throw open Hindu religious institutions for all Hindus, Hindu means Hindu shall constitute including Sikhs, Jains and Buddhists also. When we say Hindu, it's not just Hinduism, it includes Hindu, Sikhs, Jains and Buddhists are also included in the broad term of Hindu. That is what it is. The Indian, the Oriental religion, the religion which evolved here, except Christianity and Islam, which has come from outside. It's okay. So this Hindu religion, it's also said that when we say the Hindu religious institutions will be thrown open, you are including even Sikh religious institutions or Jain religious institutions or even the Buddhist institutions also. So two exceptions to this. One, we are saying that the state can bring a law for regulating economic, financial, political and other secular activity. Secular activity includes this personal codes or the personal laws related to marriage, divorce, etc. There can be reasonable restrictions on that. And number two, it can provide, if a state can bring in a law for social welfare and social reform, or to throw open any Hindu religious institution. So if there is a conflict, the bottom line is very simple. If there is a conflict between, religion and social reform or modernization, progress, then religion should give way. Religion should give way. That is the simple philosophy. Religion cannot be an obstacle in social reform and social welfare. See, the entry of women to Sabarimala temple in Kerala, very controversial. Supreme Court said that women should be allowed to enter. If they want to go, let them go. But immediately, even the best of the educated people in Kerala also stood up and said that it's a tradition of 600 years, 700 years, whatever be the number of years. If it is a question of gender equality, all are equal, all human beings. If somebody wants to go, let them go. We should not be forcing everybody to go. If my belief, my religious belief says that women should not go, yes, you don't go. As a woman, if you don't want to go, please don't go. And during the menstrual age, it's fine. But the Supreme Court's argument was that if any religious practice, if it is an obstacle to social welfare and social reform and equality and all, Article 14 talks about equality, Article 15 talks about equality. So religious reform should be there, and Article 25(2) empowers the state to reform. That is how Supreme Court opened Sabarimala temple and many other temples for women, and even mosques for women. And if you go by that same logic, and the Dalits were not allowed to enter the temples in many parts of the country. Now this has been changed by throwing open the temples for all classes of Hindus. Now if you say it's a tradition going on for so many years and we will not allow, see, that is where we should not confuse between religious beliefs and modernization, modernity and social reforms. It's very, very clear. If there is a conflict between religious belief and religious practices and modernity, liberalism and the social reform and social welfare, religion should give way, welfare should come, and reform should come into place. So the Supreme Court verdict allowing those who want to go to Sabarimala temple, those women who want to go to Sabarimala temple can go, should have been honored. But unfortunately, politics and misinterpretation of our religious rights under Article 25. And the end result is it created a chaos in the society unnecessarily. And we cannot be prisoners of the past just by saying this is a tradition. See, sati was practiced traditionally. That does not mean that we can allow sati to happen right now. So many inhuman practices we followed. You cannot allow that to continue even now in the name of tradition and the past history. So, Article 25, freedom of conscience and freedom to profess, practice and propagate religion, but it is not an absolute right. Two reasonable restrictions are there. Number one, the state can make law to regulate the political, economic and the secular aspects of religion, and number two, the state can also make law for social reforms and social welfare, and it can also make law to throw open Hindu religious institutions of public character to all classes of Hindus, including women. There can be a reform in that. The Constitution clearly says all classes of Hindus. All classes of Hindus means including women. That is why Supreme Court said that Sabarimala temple should be open for women also. But unfortunately, we opposed. Everybody stood up and said, "Nahi, how is it possible? It is a violation of our, tradition and heritage. We have to." And that's what. If there is a conflict, religion should give way. So that's about Article 25, and it's a very fascinating article. But the chance of misuse is also there, as we know very well. Religion is a hot potato in India right now, and if you speak more, and you will be wading into the controversial area, but that's not required. We should know what is our right, and state should not interfere in religious matters, and religion should not be allowed to interfere in state matters. If we follow this philosophy, India will grow and we will progress and we will become a modern nation. Western world, practiced and they understood, and they kept religion away from politics, and that is why they are able to move forward today. India also should do that only. Religion, as Marx said, it is an opium, and if you misuse it, if you use more, it's a danger. It's like riding a tiger. You will not be able to get out of the tiger after some time if you try to ride a tiger. So religion should not be mixed with politics. There may be temporary gains, long term only loss, only destruction, only negativity. It cannot, it cannot take a country forward. Religion should not be mixed with politics. If that principle is followed, India will progress. Otherwise, India will be going backward. That is the situation about Article 25.